Welcome to the Mix Minus podcast. I think I called it the Mix or the Pix Minus, plus or minus or something podcast in years past, but the podfather Tim Castano is here. Tim,
hello,
how long has it been? Half a year since you've been on?
It's been a long time. Yeah, I think actually the last one was the Oscars podcast.
Wow.
So that would have been February.
Yeah, you missed the playoffs.
Life happens.
It does happen, but this episode is sponsored by your book, which is coming out, right?
Yes, yeah, I do have a book.
It's totally about the NFL, right?
It is entirely. Yeah, no, I do have a book coming out, and they haven't given me the release date, but it's going to be this fall. So I'm just waiting. I'm learning a lot about the industry, so it's a very small independent publisher who's putting it out. So I know that, say, a year from now, I'm going to say to myself, there's a dozen things I wish I knew that I don't know now, but I'm trying to educate myself as much as possible. But yeah, so
what's it called?
The title is Quebec, and it's a novel.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it's coming out. As I said, if you ask me today, I'm going to say October.
Okay.
But I had communication with the publisher last week, and I think people were on vacation, so they couldn't really give me a clear answer. But there's a couple of outstanding items that need to be addressed, and otherwise, yeah, it's happening. So,
nice.
For better or worse, it's happening.
Will it come out before or after the Giants are in or out of the playoff race?
That's an excellent segue. The Giants will be not out of the playoff race, but will be squarely in the wild card race. I think they'll be out of the division race by that point. But we'll still be alive for playoff berth, is my guess. I don't know what to say about the Giants. I think, as most people, I'd like to say the best, but even I think at their best, from what I'm seeing, I mean, what is their ceiling? I think their ceiling is 7 wins. Maybe they could stretch to 8 wins, but I don't really see much beyond that, unfortunately. And I can't even say there's nothing. I cannot pinpoint exactly what I don't like that they've done. I just think they are rebuilding. And the defense probably has me more concerned than the offense does. I think the offense, they have an above average line, which has been a concern in recent years. They obviously have a top 5 back. They will have, I think, a good quarterback, and I think their receiving core is still decent, despite the loss that they had during the offseason. It's the defense that just has me a little concerned. I just don't really know what they're doing on that, and putting together the roster. They seem pretty weak in the middle. They seem strong up front in terms of run stopping, and they obviously invested a lot in the secondary. It's just the middle area of the field just doesn't seem quite as strong as it could be, and that historically has been a strength for the Giants. And I think maybe some of it has to do with the defensive coordinator and the schemes that he uses. That's what I've read, but I don't really know how it's going to play out, I guess, until the games start. But so the defense has me more concerned than does the offense, I would say.
Well, so for our over-unders, we're using the Action Network, which sounds reputable. Who knows? And we're going, it's using Westgate, and it's as of August 26th, because that's when we shared this. A lot has happened since then. Today is September 2nd, but as I looked at it, it looked like the date updated, but there was not a huge change in the plus or minuses in the wins. They do have the Giants at 6. They won 5 last year. And, the thing I keep having trouble with is in the NFL, no one ever admits that they're rebuilding. And I think in the other sports, that's helpful when you're trying to do plus or minus. Because you're sort of given a wink and a nod that we're rebuilding. NFL doesn't want to do that because sometimes teams over-deliver, and in 16 games you can kind of sneak to 9 wins and you can get into a playoff. So no one ever wants to say they're rebuilding, really, because you don't want to give up all of those tickets and the PSLs and all that. So I always think that's the hard part with the Giants.
I also say, too, with the NFL, I mean, it is such a physical sport that to rebuild, quote unquote, like, you're actually putting people in danger. Not to sound like sanctimonious about it, but like I think that, there is more of an obligation, say, in the NFL to play every game to win and go out and play your absolute best on every possession, because if you don't, I think you leave yourself and your teammates a little more vulnerable than you would, say, baseball or basketball. So I do think, to your point, I think it is correct that the dynamic is different in football.
Yeah, and I mean, I counted out looking at the schedule, and they have a legitimate 4 soft spots on the schedule where they really should get 4 wins just because they're what looks like the kind of dregs of the NFL. I mean, when you're thinking of
Miami,
Arizona, Washington is not supposed to be very good. Maybe Buffalo, but there's a lot of there's some potential soft spots. The Giants haven't had an easier schedule, I'd say, of late. But I think each year we've gone into this, or your rooting interest, you never really want to go on the under because that just doesn't make it that fun to root for it. So I have them going right at the number 6 and 10, but I would probably go over for rooting interest. But it's a tough season for a Giants fan, and The Ringer did a really good article on this. And we were just talking before coming on about the great television show Succession, and they were talking about succession being the major subject of the Giants when you think about Eli finally having his quarterback in waiting behind him in Daniel Jones. And I think that's what kind of comes into play here that's difficult. None of us want Eli to be bad enough that Daniel Jones is coming in too quickly. But I think because of that, you just don't know how to prognosticate this team. Because what we've seen the last few years, and that was with maybe the top 2 wide receiver in the game and a lot of weapons, Saquon Barkley, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard. He's got a lot of weapons, and I think we keep saying, oh, Eli will be good because he's got the weapons. And it's hard. It's really hard to come to terms with whether Eli's not good anymore, if the schemes aren't good, if it's just, I kept thinking of like having Odell Beckham Jr. is like having a Ferrari, and it's like, but a Ferrari isn't what you should take the kids to school in. You know what I mean? You need a nice SUV. Like a Ferrari is for a special time. We're going to air it out. We're going to go convertible. We're going to go on the bridge and drive fast. It's really hard to tell because in the NFL, you just win if you're good. You just win, and that's it. It's the Bill Parcells thing. What's my record at the end of the year? That's who I am. And so we've had this discussion for years now, it seems like. It's amazing how long Eli has been able to live on the 2 Super Bowls, which is an amazing, success. Amazing. But really, that's what's kept him from sort of being Kirk Cousins, right?
Well, yes, although his numbers last year, he did put up some good numbers. So it's not like the drop-off is really as pronounced. And, he has been in different schemes, say, over the last 4 to 5 years.
Which is maybe his fault, though, too, because the schemes don't change a ton unless there is not success, right? And look, it's happened to Aaron Rodgers. He's got a new coach, and he's supposed to be the best top 2, top 3 quarterbacks in the league. So it can happen to the best of them. But I do often think when we talk about schemes changing, it's because they're trying to scheme a fix to what is maybe a larger issue, and you're trying a bunch of things, right? I mean, isn't there a little bit of that?
There is, although, I mean, certain coaches who install certain offenses are almost in some ways player agnostic. I'm thinking back, I'm going back almost, more than 25 years, but when Ray Rhodes came into Philadelphia and he had Randall Cunningham as his quarterback, and the offensive scheme that he was running was not suited for Randall Cunningham whatsoever. But he also had Rodney Peete on the offense, on the squad, and ran his offense, which really was more suited for Rodney Peete than Randall Cunningham. Even though Randall Cunningham was exceptional, exciting talent, but that's just not he couldn't run his offense. So there could be depending upon the. And I think there was some of that. There was more with McAdoo than I think there is with Shermer. I almost said Schumer. I was like Odell Beckham when Odell Beckham used to call his head coach Schumer as opposed to Shermer. But I remember when, say, McAdoo came in, like that offense did not seem suited for Eli Manning's game whatsoever. But, he adjusted. I think Shermer's a little better for Eli Manning's skill set. So I don't. Yeah, I mean, to your question, is it that they're trying to fix something, or is it just that this is how they run things and the players have to adapt? I don't know what the situation is right now with the Giants, but last year in Shermer's offense, Eli did put up good numbers. Those aren't the type of numbers that you would say to yourself, we need to get a new quarterback. Like if you were just looking strictly at the statistics, maybe it's more in the eye test and the win total that has people saying maybe it's time to move on. I don't know. It's going to be interesting because, to your point, we want the Giants to win. For the first time in almost 15 years, or I would say more than 15 years, there is a legitimate threat on the bench now. So it seems, based on the four preseason games and the position in which he was drafted. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a portion of the fan base that's clamoring to see Daniel Jones, but in order to see Daniel Jones, the Giants will have to be not playing well, and we don't want that either. So we find ourselves in a strange place as a fan base.
Do you trust the front office?
Yeah. Well, okay. What are we? My answer is going to be yes, because there are a couple of decisions that have not panned out. Kyle Lauletta, using that pick on Kyle Lauletta and then cutting him, that doesn't really send a strong message. However, the rest of the two drafts seem, for the most part, fairly strong. There's some hits or misses, but I think more hits than misses. Off-season trades obviously have been scrutinized a lot. I'm not as down on them as maybe some of the other fans are. I think getting, the guard that they got, I think I wasn't sorry to see Beckham go, but not for reasons that other fans were. I did not find him to be as much of a distraction. From all reports, he was well liked within the locker room. So, I'm not there, I can't say, but the players seem to like him. It was more just that I didn't want that much salary wrapped up in a high-priced skill player when this team wasn't really going to maximize his talent. That's not what they need right now. That's not where they should be spending their money. So that was where more my head was. So, I don't know. I think it's going to take the end of the season, maybe next year's draft, for me to say, do I trust this front office or not? Right now I'm going to say yes, but cautiously so.
Well, don't you think maybe it's a PR issue more than anything? It's that Dave Gettleman doesn't really, and same thing, Shermer's not great with the media either. They don't really play the media game the way that maybe some of the people we've had in the past here have, and that can buy you a lot of time. I mean, look at like Mike Francesa, and who really cares? But him not even going to their camp because Gettleman wasn't even going to go on with him. And that's fine, but you have to win then, right? That's the only way you actually win. You can buy some time and you can buy some cover if you're better with the media.
That's true. Jerry Reese wasn't great with the media either.
Yeah, but he got up there. He would do the interview.
He did win Super Bowls.
Well, that's true. He did win Super Bowls. But he would also get on there. And football's tough because when it's going bad, you don't want to talk. I mean, God, we have like a perverse joy in listening to those Francesa Monday spots with what's his our old coach who I've already forgotten, McAdoo. Those were just brutal, and no one wins there. And same thing, Shermer had some moments. And when you're the coach being interviewed, you want to show fight, but it also comes across as petty sometimes too. And then Mike is playing it. I mean, it's awkward. No one's really listening, I don't think, but I think there is some stuff to be bought with that. And no one has to explain themselves, but you got to win if you don't do that. Same thing happened with Rex Ryan, right? I mean, you come out guns blaring, and it's fine when you win. But you notice in both of his stops, when he stopped winning, he had very little leash, and he was gone. And look how fast he was gone in Buffalo. I mean, and he was good in some ways as a media personality, but he was brash, and it's kind of two sides of the coin there. But I don't know. I think you almost have to play that a little better. And as I think of that, you look at like Donald Trump winning the presidency, and you're like, well, you got to do it this way, you got to do it that way, and then someone blows through and does it anyway. I think you got to win. Winning covers it all. But
yeah, I mean, look at Bill, who is who has an odder style with the media than Bill Belichick.
Exactly.
But Bill Belichick obviously wins at a pace faster than anyone, so he then is given a chance. Now, Bill Belichick, when he was in Cleveland, my understanding was dealt with the media quite similarly as he does with New England, but he did not win at the same rate, so therefore was not given the same latitude. So, I mean, Gettleman is a big personality, and he certainly has made a few unorthodox choices, but we'll see. I mean, I think he needs to be given a little bit more time.
Daniel Jones looks the part, for sure.
He does.
I mean, when I just saw him in minicamp, and you just saw the way he was running, it was like those scenes from Rudy, like not from Rudy, but the main players in how they looked against Rudy. He looked like he's got perfect stature. He's like a fully realized looking Eli. And he can throw it. I mean, he seems to have it a little. He can run a bit. He might be pretty good. I mean, who knows if it's worth it for the 6? It's worth it if he's good.
Yes.
But, he looked pretty decent.
You see, the Giants have put themselves in a difficult spot only in that there are so many variables surrounding that pick to be a success. Now, bottom line, Daniel Jones wins. Doesn't matter what happens around that pick. But let's just say there's some questions around it. A, he has to be better than Sam Darnold, because they could have had Sam Darnold last year. B, he has to be better than Josh Allen is as a pass rusher. Josh Allen has played very well in the preseason down at Jacksonville. And then he also has to be better than Dwayne Haskins. So those are, three variables that are in play here. But then again, the Giants felt strongly enough about him that they, if the player you want is there at 6 and he's a quarterback, and you're going to, obviously it's the most important position on the field. And if you're going to get the player that you want, just, if he's there, take him. So we will see what happens.
Everyone who got mad about it, that was what made me almost zig where they were zagging. I was like, look, they have every right to make the pick they want to make. Who the hell are we? Mm-hmm. We were not watching Daniel Jones against Duke.
I was not watching Duke football, and I was not watching Ohio State football that much either, and I was not watching Kentucky football to see Josh Allen play. So, sorry, Josh Allen.
Yeah, not the quarterback one. Yeah, no, but I mean, I was watching Ohio State, and I saw a lot of quarterbacks be really good in Urban Meyer's systems. Was a guy who came in and won the title for him. Well, but then there was the guy Cordell. I can't even remember his name. He was in and out of the league. They had 3 quarterbacks at one time during that time when they won the championship. So it's always tough there. It's funny because then you saw Duke playing Alabama. Duke has like a lot of hard games this year, and I kept looking. I was like, wait, was Daniel Jones a senior? And I think he actually was. But it would have been funny if he left after being a junior, because they're playing I think they started with Alabama. I think they play LSU. So he might have been seeing some big time stuff there. But look, he was with Cutcliffe, who was Peyton Manning's guy. And I mean, who knows what that means? And who knows when we're watching tape? Most of the guys, when I saw the tape, they're open by like 5 yards at Duke when it was thrown to them. And they weren't like you didn't have a great record. It wasn't a great team, but things can happen. I mean, Eli had the pedigree of being a Manning, but it wasn't like people were falling over themselves to get him. And they really kind of went up to number 1, right, to get him. So, and really, they could have had a really good quarterback still. And they went to get him, and it paid off. And so, not that it was this regime, but you got to give them the ability to, if they really see something in a guy, they're in charge. They have the right to go for him. And really, what was the opportunity cost, right? I mean, that's what you're talking about. I mean, sure, we could have had Haskins, but if they didn't want Haskins, if they wanted this guy, just get him. Get him when you can get him. And
I think personality has something to do with it as well. It seems that they were looking for a certain mental makeup. And I mean, when you would talk to, but when we would listen to or read Ernie Accorsi talk about getting Eli Manning, a large part of it for him was the fact that he thought Eli Manning could succeed in New York, that he had the personality and resilience to survive as a quarterback with the New York Giants. And he was right. So I think perhaps some, similar calculus was applied to Daniel Jones in the selection. So there are certain intangibles and soft skills that may have entered into the decision to pick him. And thus far, from what we've seen, and again, he's been through one training camp, a pretty difficult training camp, we have to say, because he's in a tough spot. He's said all the right things. He's, even the Baker Mayfield controversy, he answered that perfectly. And he played well during the preseason. So he's done everything that's asked of him and has not had any slip-ups. And, I think that means something to the Giants, to the Maras and the Tisches and to Dave Gettleman, that they have a quarterback they know will continue to operate with the same style and character that Eli Manning has.
Absolutely. So where do you have them? Their number is 6.
Yeah, I'm at 6.
Yeah, it's a nice push. It really feels like it's on the they should always go with a half, right? I mean, I don't know.
They should.
I think having the full number is tough. It's almost like when they have them at the number, take the number because it's like they don't want bets on either side. All right.
Yeah, but no, I got them at 6. Even with the schedule, even with everything, I just think they're going to be 6.
Yeah, I think so. I think anything else on the Giants before we do our rapid movement through the rest?
I'm interested in Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah.
He's slimmed down apparently in training camp. He's down 20 pounds. And I know when they picked him, they had him pegged really just as a nose tackle, but now they've moved him, I think, a little bit to the edge. And I'd be interested to see if he's actually going to apply any pressure on a quarterback. Because, they could have had Montez Sweat, who I know had injury issues at that, and he dropped as a result of that. But he was a more traditional pass rusher. But they went with Dexter Lawrence, who certainly comes from a great program and certainly, a big athletic player. But is he going to get pressure on the quarterback? It's something that I'm interested in seeing just how that pick plays out. Again, given the opportunity cost of other players they could have had at that slot.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just excited to see some. I get excited at least for the beginning, right? Until it disabuses you of your excitement. And the Jets, I think, will be fun too. But we will get to them. So the Action Network seems like it goes in order when we're talking about the teams here of over-unders from most wins in the over-under to the least wins, I believe. So we'll follow that order. So next up, we have the team who the Giants have beaten 2 Super Bowls, and unfortunately also the Philadelphia Eagles have as well. That would have been the nice sterling thing the Giants could have had if the Eagles did not have that Super Bowl. But New England went ahead and won another one last year.
They did, so now.
And I think they always kind of go on the over, and this year they're at 11 wins. That's a tough one because that's another one of those where it's asking you to say, yep, let's go with 11. I have them going 11-5, actually.
Yeah, I could talk myself into that as well, because part of what has helped the Patriots on this run is that the AFC East has not been very competitive during the regular season. Yeah. So, and I think that 11-5, as crazy as it sounds, depends on how well the Buffalo Bills do. So if the Buffalo Bills are good and can split with them, then maybe it's 10-6. Or if they're not, then it is 11-5, because I think the Jets are going to split with them. I think the Dolphins are not. If the Dolphins are going to go 0-2 against them, it's really, for me, if Buffalo is going to go 1-1 or 0-2, and I'm going to hold at 11 with you and say, yeah, they're going to be 11-5. There's no reason they won't be. Well,
and the only thing that like Miami has going for them is that it's the beginning of the season and it's in Florida, like the second week. And often New England's not as good as they are later in the season. And they seem to lose against, Miami and Miami. Like they even had the crazy laterals play last year, right?
Yes.
So weird things can happen, but I still think they're going to be at 11 wins, which is tough.
If there's a team that's tanking in the NFL this season, it appears to be the Miami Dolphins.
Which is amazing because, the hard part I have with when people go that route is the coaches have to sort of agree that they're on board, but public relations backlash kills you in the NFL because each loss is 6 days. And it's just 6 days after 6 days after 6 days, and then it's buys, which had 13 days, and the media scrutiny and the buildup of the time that is not the games. It just seems to eat ownership alive to where they're just like, all right, I'm done with this. Like they just don't have the stomach to sit through it. So that's always the hard part. Is I think sometimes people say they're sort of like willing to rebuild so that they can surprise people, but like I can't believe that Stephen Ross is okay with that. You know what I mean? And ultimately, like, sort of, yes, but like they brought in Josh Rosen, who, by the way, after this season could just be like a joke, right? I mean, last year he was like the chosen Rosen, and it was a terrible time in Arizona. And
terrible line, terrible offensive line.
Absolutely, but like he's going to Miami, and if it doesn't go well here, and he didn't even win the starting job over our old friend Ryan Fitzpatrick, it's kind of damning. I mean, the guy, like, if you're on a team that you know is going to be bad and you can't beat out Ryan Fitzpatrick in camp, and, you know, I listen to the Pro Football Focus stuff a lot just because I want to hear the things that the people who actually, like, study the film tell you. And I'm really shocked at how much he's sort of like a PR hype in a way, where he apparently is not very good on, like, intermediate throws, which is the majority of the NFL. And they're like, yeah, he's been that way even through college. And you're like, really? You know, we see the highlights and it's like, oh, he's, you know, coming back from like 40 points down against Texas A&M. Oh, he's got this. But sometimes we just, unless we love the team and watch the team, we don't see throw to throw what they're hitting and missing. And we know that very well with Eli. But yeah, that kind of surprised me. So I feel like if he can't win that out, that's some trouble. But we'll get to them. So we both have New England at 11. And I think this is the year where they do not get to the Super Bowl because of the next team on the list we have here, the Kansas City Chiefs, who were within like, nothing of being in the Super Bowl and potentially winning a Super Bowl, as I think would have when we saw what happened against the Rams.
Yeah. Rams, that was not good.
But they are obviously a team. If there was an NBA League Pass, even though there is an NFL Sunday Ticket, they would be like a League Pass team. They are so fun to watch. They just added LaShawn McCoy. They're loaded. They won 12 last year. Their number is 10.5, which when you look at that, you're like, Vegas has something here. Vegas is either trying to get more money on one side of the bet, or they're seeing something, and they're seeing maybe a natural drop-off. I have a hard time seeing that when you have the young quarterback not making the money yet, who has everything to. It's not like he's a veteran who's bored with the numbers, right? I mean, he's going to come right back out, and I see them going 12-4 again. What about you?
I'm actually going to go under.
Wow.
I agree with everything you said about them representing the AFC and the Super Bowl this year. But I look at that AFC West, and Chargers are very good. Obviously Broncos and Raiders, not great. Maybe they could surprise you a little bit here and there, but I'm going to go under, but under at 10, and I still have them. I think they're my pick to go to the Super Bowl for the AFC.
That's not a gun to your head under, right?
No, it's not a gun to my head under.
Yeah, they are. I mean, look, they still have Andy Reid as their coach, and no magical quarterback sometimes can overcome that, even though he's just tremendous year after year in the regular season. And they're just, as long as Mahomes is there, it's like Peyton Manning in his, it's like a turbo button Peyton Manning in some ways. And he hasn't even figured anything out yet. He's only like 24, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. It's crazy. So, all right, I'm over, you're under, but we both think they're going to get to the Super Bowl. Next up, we have one of the aforementioned Los Angeles teams. We have the Los Angeles Rams, who did get to a Super Bowl, and it was one of the most boring Super Bowls. I was sitting there having my beer, and I was like, wait, this is almost over? This is and New England's going to win this way? What was it, 13-10 or 13-3?
That was awful.
It was bad. And they actually had 13 wins last year. 10.5 is their over-under this year. Much like you have Kansas City going under, I have them just going under at 10-6. How about you?
Same, 10-6.
And do you think that's a hangover thing a little bit?
Yeah, hangover. I mean, they were good. They were good the previous season too. So in some ways, I felt like they were going to have a hangover last season, but they didn't. They kept the momentum going, so I give them credit for that. But I think again, a little more competition within their division, and I think. Could be, they've lost some of the coaching staff. Who knows if that actually shows up or not? But, they have suffered some losses. And
not an easy schedule either.
No, it's not. I got them at 10. So not a huge drop off or not a huge under, but like you, I think it's going to be 10-6.
Next up, we got the New Orleans Saints, who are also at a 10.5. They also, in 2018, had 13 wins, and they had a pretty gut-wrenching loss in the
you could say that.
NFC Championship game. Now,
one of the worst non-calls, perhaps.
One of the worst non-calls, but I will say in the moment, I even said it, when I watched it live without the slow-mo, I was like, okay, bang, bang, play without the slow-mo. Slow-mo was terrible, but I think they had every shot to still win, and that was my problem with it. I don't want to hear the complaints. I know, like, Sean Payton can't be throwing his headset and all this stuff. Like, in the regular season, yes. The lobbying, all that is good because you have more time to play in a season. In that moment, you just got to be cool and just go and get the thing done anyway. So that kind of, because it was like right away, they're like, uh-oh, this will be the thing. And it was almost like the popular narrative wanted it to be the thing anyway. So we're going to make it happen. But I actually have them on the over, though, still. A lot of people have sort of been down on the fact that Drew Brees is extremely old from a quarterback point of view, though we see plenty of them. And there is a thought that maybe there's a drop-off because of his first half of last season was unbelievable. The second half wasn't. I just see the totality. I see 13 wins. I don't really get into that stuff where it's like, how did he look these games? It's like people get on a hot streak or they get on a regular streak. It's like pitchers. And he still got 13 wins. So I do have them on the over, though. And I think it was partially schedule, and I think it was partially just they're a ridiculous offensive team.
I've got them just under, so 10-6, for all the reasons you said. But again, I think NFC South has gotten a little tougher. I don't expect much out of Tampa Bay, but I think Atlanta's going to bounce back, and and then Carolina, I think, definitely has the talent, depending on what happens with Cam. But I think 10-6. I think they'll make the playoffs, but I just don't think they have 11 wins in them. I think 10.
Yeah, it's just amazing when you think they have a top quarterback, a top running back, a top wide receiver, and I'm probably missing somebody. It's just a really well put together team, and it's a very opportunistic defense. Yeah, they've turned things around. I mean, Sean Payton's been there a long time now. Remember when he was moving his family out of New Orleans to Dallas?
They're going to Texas, yeah.
And did they even stay together, or are they divorced at this point? I don't even know.
I don't think they're together anymore.
So maybe there was more to that. Los Angeles Chargers, other Los Angeles team.
We missed Philadelphia.
Oh, I have them below L.A. Chargers in this list for some reason.
Oh, okay.
They're both at 10. Yeah, they're both at 10 in this thing, I think, right?
Oh, okay. So I had the Chargers at 9.5.
Oh, I wonder if that dropped. All right. Well, we'll do them, and then we'll hit Philly. So I actually interesting. So if they're 9.5, so I have them here at 10, but maybe the Melvin Gordon piece is doing something here. Last year they won 12. I actually have them going 10-6.
So do I. And I think I have them 10-6 and winning the AFC West.
Wow.
I think Kansas City will be a wild card and go to the Super Bowl, but I think Chargers are going to win the AFC West. I think they're a very well put together team. I think a very well coached team. Even though there have been some movements in the offseason that maybe would raise some eyebrows, but I just think that they are a solid organization, also playing under not the best of circumstances, given that they're in their temporary home, and a temporary home that draws fans for the opposing team more than they do their own. But still, they were able to hold it together last year, win 12 games, and I think that there's nothing about them that says to me that they've dropped off enough to fall below 10 wins. So I think 10-6 is what they're going to be.
Do you think it's as much the Super Bowls as it is Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger still being so kind of productive that has kept Eli going? I mean, he's got a ton of money too, but isn't it amazing how those guys have been so good right up through now?
It is, yeah. And you just mentioned Drew Brees, and that Drew Brees is older. We're looking at several quarterbacks who are playing well beyond what was once considered to be the average age or average retirement age for quarterbacks. And it could just be, that's just the evolution of the player in the position. And it just so happens that they're hitting at the right time, that you have this cohort of first round quarterbacks who are, who have kept themselves, relatively injury free. And, there's just could be a lot of factors that are contributing to their continued success. But it is, it's impressive. It's impressive. So, it'll be interesting to see some quarterbacks just after them, how long they play. If you have your Matt Ryan, although he's a few years behind them, how long he plays. But it is, it's terrific that you have Roethlisberger. Who thought that in 2019 we'd be talking about Roethlisberger, Manning, and Rivers, but we are.
And really, for Rivers and Roethlisberger, taking their productivity for granted.
Yeah, and let's not forget, you mentioned Drew Brees again. Rivers was brought in to move out Drew Brees. So here it is, they're both playing at exceptionally high levels.
And whose career do you take at that point in time? That's an amazing thing when you see them both in the Chargers jerseys.
And to think that they actually had, in the same draft that they got Drew Brees and LaDainian Tomlinson, the Chargers, is pretty crazy. When you think about that. Yeah, they got Drew Brees at the top of the second round, and early first round they had LaDainian Tomlinson. So, pretty great draft.
Another pretty good draft is Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles, who are at 10 wins here. They won 9 last year. They got to the playoffs and actually won that crazy game in Chicago with the crazy kicking thing. For some reason, I don't know if I was just going through this, but I have them at 9-7, and even though I've read so much and I'm told how great the talent is up and down their roster, for some reason I think they're going to go 9-7. And I look at their schedule, and it's not even as bad as I felt it was when I originally looked at it. But I have them on the under.
I've got them over. I got them 11-5. As a Giants fan, that's tough for me to do. But I think they've only gotten better in the offseason. And defensively, very strong. And I think that, tough to say. I don't really have the animus toward the Eagles that some Giants fans do, but nevertheless, I still don't really want them to win. But I've got them 11-5.
Where do you have, just because it's in the same division, where do you have Dallas? Why don't I see them here? They should be right. Yeah, there they are. So Dallas is over-under is 9. I actually have them 9-7 as well.
Yeah, I've got them 9-7 as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. I've got them 9-7, but I just think that Philadelphia's put together a pretty solid squad and a well-coached team. A lot obviously hinges on Carson Wentz and how well he plays now without Nick Foles there. And he has been injury prone, but you think about how well they were playing before he got injured 2 seasons ago. There's not really much reason to believe that he can't deliver similar results. And, I've got them 11-5.
I wonder if there's a psychological thing there with you are playing so well and then you go down and the guy leads them to a Super Bowl and then takes back over the next year, wins a round in the playoffs, and here you are again. It seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. It's just like, is his body really, he looks like he's got that sort of, Western United States build and like nothing can get to him, but he does seem to get some weird injuries. And sometimes you don't come back quite from those very well. And it's just weird. So, I don't know why I had them under, so I'm going to stick it. You have them over. On to the aforementioned Chicago Bears. They had a great season last year. Everything went right. They got to, except the playoffs and kicking. They got to 12 wins, and their over-under is 9. I still think they're a very good team, but purely because they have one of the most brutal-looking schedules I've ever seen. I have them going 7-9. How about you?
8-8.
Yeah, isn't it crazy though? Like I don't see any difference in them. I think they're a tremendous team, but that is a brutal schedule.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, it is up and down. It's brutal because I think Green Bay and Minnesota are going to be improved, and that automatically is just going to hurt them. And that's going to be a really tough pill to swallow for that city and for that team. And look, they can make us look silly and have a good season and do better than that and show that they have more staying power and that they should be taken as seriously as the Minnesotas and the Green Bays. But yeah, we both have them at a kind of low number there. And look, Vegas has them. If Vegas has them at a 9, then there's more to it than just a normal drop off with the team. But that'll be tough. How much they win in on last year, and then for it to kind of fall apart to get home field advantage in a round, and that was their shot. So we're both under. This will be a fun one.
Yes.
Cleveland Browns. They're at a 9 as well. They won 7 last year. You would have thought they won 17. The way they were spoken of. I actually do have them going right at the 9-7, but I would choose the over at 10-6 just to be on one side of the bet. I think they have a lot going for them. Unbelievable talent at major positions up and down the field on both sides of the ball. And there's no reason that they shouldn't be at 10 wins. But look, we basically had this team with the Giants the last couple of years. We had Beckham. We had Vernon.
And are you saying Freddie Kitchens is Ben McAdoo?
Oh, my God. That's another, that head coaching thing. I think this, if we thought Beckham was calling Schumer, what is he calling Kitchens? I mean, and I have to tell you, if I have to read, I almost ended my affiliation with Sports Illustrated for good, which many people have. But when I read that piece about the Cleveland Renaissance and about how all these people really in the back of their heads always wanted to be Browns, from John Dorsey to Freddie Kitchens, that he saw it as the Alabama of the NFL, to Baker Mayfield, to Odell Beckham Jr. finally buying a home in a place he never bought a home in New York, but he bought a home here to be next to his best friend. If I have to read another piece about that, trying to jam in the narrative that couldn't be any more untrue, this is a whole lot of opportunism, and good for them. They've built a really nice looking team, but this has as much chance to combust as it does to work out. I think that's the part that's going to be most fascinating, is that everything you see here on paper, and we always hear about it each year, the team on paper, the paper teams always fold.
Just ask Vince Young and the Philadelphia Eagles.
And then what team did they say? Yeah, the Dream
Team.
Dream Team. Exactly. I mean, that's what I feel here, and I think I almost don't want them to do well, because I think Odell Beckham Jr., he's really showing the side of himself that none of us liked by saying that the Giants, I love he's on this team that's trying to build something, and he's like, they sent me here to die. And there is nothing, let's see if I could say this the right way. There is nothing more unsexy for Odell Beckham Jr. than being in a Browns uniform. I'm sorry. And living in Cleveland. What do you think?
Well, I'm not going to besmirch Cleveland.
No, I like Cleveland, but I'm just saying.
I would say there are a lot of, again, I'm going to use a word I've used before, variables with Cleveland, including, head coach, first time. They've lost their defensive coordinator, who was their interim head coach, and did a good job holding that team together. You are bringing in some new personalities. You've got a quarterback who is trying to establish himself. I agree with you. They could very easily get to 10 wins. But I'm going to hold at 9, and as I said, I could see this going either way. I could see them going 7-9, or I could see them going 9-7, or I could actually see them going 10-6. But I'm just going to say 9 for right now, because I'd like to see how they manage a lot of the challenges that they have. It's also difficult to manage. It's almost like how can I put it? Like when you have a a new business or a new startup or a new nonprofit that then suddenly gets a lot of funding. It's almost too much funding at once.
Well, what is it called? It's like Dutch disease, right? Or something?
Yeah, I don't know, but they don't know how to necessarily manage it. And I think maybe that's kind of what could be happening here with Cleveland. So I'm going to say 9-6. I'm not down on them. 9-7. 9-7. Sorry, 9-7. But I could easily see them going 10.
The last thing I'd say with them, the problem is if you don't go 15-1, that's the only thing that would keep combustion from happening. That's the problem with this roster. You need to have pure, like when we talked about coaches, you need to just win. Otherwise it's going to combust. And any amount
0-2.
Yeah. Or even if any amount of losses are going to have such downside risk, that's the only problem. This is the year they have to do something, and just that pressure puts too much on the season. And then we're going to have to read the stories in the next few years. They had to shed off the personalities to really get to the culture they wanted, which was a Baker Mayfield-led team.
And I'm just saying, I'm looking at their schedule right now. It's not a walk in the park the first 6 games.
Right.
Yeah, they're playing. They have Tennessee at home. Probably a win. That's a winnable game. Then they go to the Jets. Jets are certainly improved. Then they have the Rams at home. Then they're at Baltimore, at San Francisco, and then they have Seattle at home. That is optimistically a 3-3 start to their season.
Yeah. No, it's not going to be.
That's a lot to manage. And then, by the way, they have a bye, and then they go to New England.
No, it's not. It's just not good. There's just a team like that. You need to get out ahead of confidence, right? You got to get a bunch of wins under your belt, and then I don't know. We both really like Odell Beckham Jr., but we've also seen what happens when things aren't going perfectly well. We've seen what happens when they are going perfectly well. In the week between a playoff, and he's got the whole team. All the wide receivers on a boat in Miami with their shirts off. Not a good, yeah. So that is an issue. All right, let's rapid fire. We got Green Bay. Win total 9. Last year, really underwhelming 6. I am not going to bet on Green Bay to do huge things anymore, but I do have them going 10-6. How about you?
Same. I think they're going to go over.
Yeah.
I think last season was an aberration, and I think I think they have enough talent, and you have Aaron Rodgers, who I think is, from a skill perspective, maybe after Mahomes, maybe even ahead of Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL. I think I've got him 10-6. And
healthy. He wasn't healthy right from that first game, even though he had that magical thing. It looked like he had a torn ACL, even though it didn't.
Yes.
I don't think he did.
Yeah. There was just too much going around, too much swirling around the Packers last season. I think they've cleared a lot of that out, and I think they're going to go 10-6.
Pittsburgh Steelers, win total 9. Last year they won 9. I have them bumping back and going 11-5. I think as long as Roethlisberger's really good, they always have the skill positions, and sometimes getting that wide receiver who's taking up a lot of emotional bandwidth out of the picture can be a positive. And so I actually do have them going 11-5. How about you?
I got a 9-7.
Wow.
I got a 9-7. Yeah. So I'm going to hold with where they are. I just think I know Bryant's out of there. I know they've made other changes, but I just feel like that's a 9-7 team we're looking at.
Okay. Minnesota. They won 8 last year. Their over-under is 9 this year. I thought they're going to be improved, but I actually had them going 8-8, and I think it's just because I can't trust Kirk Cousins to man an 11-win team. I just can't do it. No matter how good this roster is, and it really is good, and they are ready to have a plug-in quarterback who can help them thrive, I just don't think Kirk Cousins is the guy. And I'll tell you, I read this Ringer article about how much they're doing to create the environment to be good for Kirk Cousins. They brought in Gary Kubiak to oversee Kevin Stefanski, the son of the old Nets GM, Ed Stefanski. They're talking about, we're going to do this the run the run option or whatever. They're doing all this stuff, and then Kirk Cousins is asking for special reports for vacation from the analytics department. Too much thinking, too much. It was like with the Redskins. They gave him his own office near the coaches. It's like, guys, there's a problem here. And I hate to say it, but it's Kirk Cousins. He's going to put up his numbers, and he's going to be fine. But we saw last year what happens with all of the expectations. What happened? And I actually think, for whatever reason, it's me, I think Kirk Cousins tops out at a 9-win quarterback. It's just how I feel. And I see them going 8-8, though. Tough schedule,
yeah.
too.
Yeah, I've got them 9-7. I had them look well. Last year, I think they were my Super Bowl pick. It was going to be the Vikings and the Steelers, if I remember correctly. So I did not get that one correct. So maybe I'm just trying to I'm thinking too much of last season. It might be more emotional. But no, I just think 9-7 Vikings. I think it's a well-coached team. I hear what you're saying about Cousins. I'm not entirely sold on him either, but I do think they have enough talent around him that they can eke out 9 wins, even in what is a very tough division.
Well, and they did not give up on Case Keenum, who got him to 13 wins, to get 16 wins over the next 2 seasons. Like, that is an unbelievable drop-off. I mean, that's just bad. And this guy got so much guaranteed money. Good for him. But, man, that'll be a tough pill to swallow with 8 wins or not, or even 9, right? I mean, I guess you get to the playoffs, it's good, but that roster is loaded at every position except the quarterback. It's loaded. Offense, defense especially, running, wide receiver tandem. I mean, they are really good. And it's like, man, they need one of these like quarterbacks on the rookie scale contract who's really good. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. Dallas Cowboys, we talked about. I think we both had them at 9-7. And I think this is the last year for them to really thrive with this team. They're really well put together, but they have Dak on the rookie contract. They'll have Ezekiel Elliott, it looks like, for potentially game 1 on a bigger contract. What a way to kind of like strike and with 2 years left on a contract. But hey, that's someone else's problem. And as people say, Jerry Jones is going to just pay because he's getting up there in age and he doesn't have many other chances with other new groups of skill position players. So I think we both had them at 9, right?
Mm-hmm. No, actually, I made 8-8, I think.
Oh, you had them 8-8. Okay. Well, I went 9-7. Yeah. You had them 8-8. That's bad. Atlanta, 8.5. They won 7 last year. I have them going 9-7. How about you?
As do I. They're over.
Yeah. I mean, they're sort of same old story in a lot of ways. They got Dirk Cutter back, which I always love how it's like, oh, they got Dirk Cutter back. It's like, same thing. Quarterbacks should make systems as much as systems should make quarterbacks. Like, Matt Ryan's good. I don't need to hear about Dirk Cutter coming back. A lot of good he did with Jameis Winston, which we'll have to see how that goes with Bruce Arians, which will be fun, but we'll talk that. Baltimore Ravens, 8.5. They won 10 last year. I actually have them going 8-8, and I always want them to. I always think that they overachieve, but they're different now. They got like Lamar Jackson as the quarterback in full time. What are they going to do? Is it going to be this hybrid? I even love that they got Earl Thomas, right? I mean, that's kind of a great under the radar Baltimore Ravens move. But I have them going 8-8. How about you?
I have them 7-9.
Wow. Okay, and you like Baltimore a lot.
I have them at 7-9. Yeah, I just I just think they got a little lucky last season. No, I shouldn't say lucky. No team is really lucky in the NFL, but I was not as impressed with what they did toward the end of last season, even though they did make the playoffs. I just see some regression there in what I've, I did watch them a little bit in the preseason. I just, as I said, they are trying to install a new offense, and as much as they can, whatever it is that they say about it, however they much promote it, I'm not entirely sold. I'm saying 7-9.
Yeah, when there's too much explanation about how things are going to work and this, it's like they're trying to explain it into reality. You know what I mean? It's like, we get it. Just get on the field. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And it did not work in that playoff game. And I know he made a weird late comeback to make it more respectable, but that was brutally awful. And I don't know how things can be that bad in a playoff game and then all of a sudden magically improve. Seattle, 8.5 over under. Last year they won 10. I have them going 10-6, but I would go on the over because you could even get 9 there. I just trust their infrastructure. They just got Clowney. I don't know if this number even improved. I don't know that Clowney's almost one of these, like, it's almost in the NBA, the name, you got the name and it's like you just believe that they're great because of what he did in college. And he's always a name, but like if the Texans were so happy to kind of get off of him, that's never a great thing. But hey, he goes to Seattle, maybe that changes things. But at the end of the day, Russell Wilson just seems to will the team to get a certain amount of wins over 500.
Yeah, just think about Russell Wilson on the Vikings.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, that would be perfect. So along those lines, though, I think I want to maybe give them 10 wins, but I'm going to go safe and say 9. That's still over, but I'm going to say 9-7. And I think that's 9-7 that will get them into the playoffs.
Yeah, no, they're just they sort of overachieve. He just doesn't allow a team to drop below a certain level. It's like you're saying, he's the anti-Kirk Cousins. Mm-hmm. I mean, he doesn't even put the numbers up sometimes, but he just finds a way. Houston Texans, 8.5 over under. 2018, they got to 11 wins. I have them over. I have 10-6, a little wiggle room, but I think Deshaun Watson is one of these quarterbacks who, sort of like we were talking with Russell Wilson, and he's still on a smaller deal. But I think he's one of these quarterbacks who just finds a way to be the difference between a team who's like 7-9, 6-10, or 9-7 and 10-6. So I see them going 10-6. I'm between 8 wins, so under, or 9 wins on them. So it's a tough call. I mean, the trade they did make, it was a botch trade. They handled it poorly, but they did in fact get an upgrade on the offensive line, which should help Watson, and they did get a better receiver, which should help him. So I should go to 9 wins. Yeah, I think I talked myself into 9 wins. Bill O'Brien seems to be a pretty decent regular season coach too.
He is, but their front office is a mess right now. They don't even have a GM. They're kind of like the Oscars. There's no host. So
he said all racist things on a tweet or something.
Yeah, exactly. But it just seems like an oddly run front office. He always seems like he has one foot out the door. And I don't know where he would go next, but that's what maybe has me a little concerned. I feel like this is a team that if they struggle early in the season, things go south quickly for them. I'm going to revise that. I'm going to go 8-8.
Okay, you're under. I'm over.
Yeah, I'm going to go under.
Okay, Tennessee Titans. They're always a team who is hard to pinpoint because they can just be terrible or slightly above mediocre. Their number is 8. Last year they won 9. I actually see them going 6-10. How about you?
So do I. I was going to say 6-10 myself. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just not a lot there.
I think they're sliding to a rebuild. I think by the end of the season, they're going to be talking about taking a quarterback. They're going to be, I think it's a team headed for a rebuild.
It's crazy, the Mariota Winston thing. 5 years on now, 5 years, and they just, neither one of them has really changed the narrative. Look, was it last year or 2 years ago where Mariota won that game? It had to be 2 years ago against the Chiefs, right? Where he came all the way back. So he's had sort of moments, but they're moments just before the time where everybody's going to watch, and then you can have the moment. Like he does it in like the wild card weekend, and I just don't know if maybe he's not great. But then again, he doesn't even seem to have, like their offense always seems like it's like 5 or 10 yards ahead, and he's always throwing to a tight end. Like it doesn't, I don't know if it's the offense or if it's him or if they're overcompensating for what he's deficient at. You don't know, but when you're thinking those things, it means there's a problem. And that's where I fall there. So where I don't see a problem is San Francisco. They're 8. They won 4 last year. Presumably Jimmy Garoppolo is going to come back okay this year. Terrible break. What has he played? 8 games in the 2 years he's been there or something like that?
Yeah.
He had the magical 5-0 stretch to that one season, and then just that brutal knee injury last year, which, that wasn't brutal looking, but just brutal in how much it keeps you out. I have them going 9-7 though. I'm not ready to really anoint them, but Shanahan is a really good tactician. There's even a lot of talk that the backup Nick Mullins, that if things don't work out with Garoppolo as soon as this year, you could go to him. I think that's kind of crazy, but I do see them going 9-7.
I'm going to go 8-8 because they've had a lot of injuries. I think along with the offensive line, and I just don't know if we saw enough from them last year to suggest that this is a team really on the rise, and if they're expecting Jimmy Garoppolo to come in and fix a lot of the problems. They seem to have more problems than they did at the end of last season, and last season didn't go very well. So I've got them 8-8, which I think is somewhat generous, and it's also what this is, but I'm just not as... I have yet to buy into entirely what San Francisco is selling.
How about Jacksonville? Do you only buy in because they had a good year 2 years ago, or are you? I'm on the under. They're 8. They won 5 last year. I see them going 7-9. I think the Nick Foles pixie dust doesn't leave with him outside of Philadelphia.
Interesting. I got them 9-7. I got them over. I do have them over. I mean, by one game, by not a lot, but I do have them over. I think they've got a lot of talent on the defensive end. I think Nick Foles is a better quarterback than Blake Bortles, and that's good for a win in the regular season, if not 2 wins in the regular season. So he may not be the triumphant Super Bowl quarterback from 2 seasons ago, but I still think that he is an upgrade over what they had in the regular season, and I think that is enough to get them to 9 wins, given the other talent they have on the roster.
Carolina Panthers, 8 wins over under. They won 7 last year. They're sort of they're like the reliever of NFL football. You know, you have a great season, and then everyone trades for you and gives you a contract, and then you have an off season, and then you're down and out, and then someone gets you on a small contract, and then you're great for a season. I have them just over, not quite great, but just over the number at 9-7, because I do think their team is still, it's still really good, and I think that Cam can still get a lot done. McCaffrey's still really good, and so I'm not asking for a lot at 9, but I think they can go 9-7 to kind of bounce back. What were they, 11-5 2 years ago? Before 7 this year. What do you think?
I think 9-7 is good too. That's where I had them as well. I think, there is a lot of talent. I mean, there's sort of like a little up and down season to season, as you pointed out, but I think they're in a pretty competitive division as well, barring other than the Buccaneers. So, I mean, I think if they were playing in a different division, they could easily be 10-6, but where they are, I think 9-7 is about, I think that's about where they're going to land. But at the same time, I know it sounds crazy, if they're a team that if you told me they went 11-5, I could believe it, but also 6-10, and I could believe it.
They just bounce around. It's like a very variable kind of funny sword's edge. Indianapolis Colts were on the precipice of a Super Bowl, and now I have them. Their number is 7.5. After the Andrew Luck thing, they won 10 last year, which is kind of surprising. But they were 1-5 or something. Was that last year where they were? They started out really bad.
Yes.
Came all the way back. I see them going 8-8, so I actually do have them over, just over, and I don't know if I would actually. I don't know where I feel about that actually, but I have them going 8-8 because they had the infrastructure of a team everyone was ready to anoint.
Yeah,
I think Brissett could be a decent quarterback in the regular season. So 8-8 is not asking a ton, but that's where I have them.
I'm going to go one game better and go 9-7.
Okay.
And I think that actually that 9-7 is going to win them the AFC South.
Wow. Okay. Jets are also 7.5, a little bit more of a rising 7.5 than the Colts feel. They won 4 last year. I actually see them with a little game and a half margin. I actually see them getting to 9 wins this year because I think if Sam Darnold is going to be the kind of quarterback that people see in him, that the tools he has around him, starting with Le'Veon Bell, a decent defense, decent skill players to play around Sam. Their schedule, I think, wasn't horrendous in my view. I see them going 9-7.
I'm one below you. I've got them 8-8. For a lot of the reasons you just cited, but I just feel like still growing, new coach, new system. More new than not. I think Sam Darnold is legit from everything I've seen. I have no reason not to believe that. As a Giants fan, I'm rooting for the Jets to do well. But I think 8-8 is where they're going to land this year.
It's going to be fun to watch Le'Veon Bell, with the team. Like, I always saw him in highlights. I never really sat down and watched him. He was always doing unbelievable fantasy stuff. It's going to be kind of interesting to see a year off. Mm-hmm. And he sort of is a trailblazer. All these running backs all of a sudden were ready to step out mm-hmm. and still might. Denver Broncos, they are wasting away what was like one of the great defenses on attempt after attempt to fill a hole at the quarterback position, which is a difficult thing to do at any time. But when you have that defense waiting there, it's even tougher. So their win total is 7 over or under this year. They won 6 last year with Case Keenum, who is now our starter in Washington. Yes. I have them right at the 7-9 number. I think their defense is good enough. I don't think Joe Flacco is at a point in his age, and I think in his career. And I don't know if at any time he would have been the guy you'd want to bring in to save your franchise. Sort of got that little Eli to him where it's like you put him in the right spot and he can make magic happen, but don't necessarily, and I'm not saying Eli's like that, but I just wouldn't put him in this spot and expect him to fix things. So I have him going 7-9.
I'm with you on that. I've got them at 7-9 as well. For all the reasons you just cited, very good defense. Defense in some ways has gotten better with, Chubb last year, who I think bolsters what they do well.
Absolutely.
But I don't know what it is. It's strange, isn't it? Someone needs to do a profile. I mean, I know they've been done about why it is that Elway can't find his quarterback. One of the great quarterbacks in NFL history can't really find his person. But there's nothing about them that excites me other than a solid defense, and I think a solid defense can get you 7 wins.
Yeah, I just don't. You know what they'll do? They'll convince Andrew Luck to come.
Well, it's true. And they're also playing in a tough division. They've got to play the Chiefs twice. They got to play the Chargers twice. So,
but they should be that. They should be that home field. If you're a team, you should get 7 wins out of that home field. Like, that's a great home field. You should be able to get 6 or 7 of those wins there, and then find the rest elsewhere. It's just the quarterback. That's what it is. Next up, Detroit, 6.5 over under. They won 6 last year. I convinced myself into a 7-9. If you're ever gonna kind of build up on this coaching tree, and Patricia's had a real down-looking PR season last year. It was not beautiful, but they still do. I
think he was going to make to week 2.
I know, that was bad. They still do have Stafford, who finds a way to just be competitive enough to kind of like steal a couple of wins off you. So I would go on the over. I wouldn't bet my life on it, but I think if they can't get on the over of that, that's a real bad thing. I don't think anyone was prepared to rebuild starting last year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm going to go under. I'm going to go 6-10 again. Again, competitive division. Have they really gotten any better? I mean, I like Matt Stafford. I'm a fan of his. They made some moves in the off season, but I'm going to hold at 6-10, so I'm going to go under.
Well, who did they bring in? They brought in a new offensive coordinator, right? Is it Bevel, the guy who's always the name? Darryl
yes.
Bevel.
Yes.
So no more Jim Bob Cooter. So I don't know. We'll see. They always seem to be the team who sort of surprises when they're not expecting anything from them, and then drops off when you are. So they might just do enough where you start talking about them a little bit before they fall off again. Tampa Bay, a lot of changes there. Bringing in Arians. It's funny seeing the Jets coach. Todd, what's his last name?
Oh, Todd Bowles.
Todd Bowles. I'm always like, I want to get in the psychology of the coach who just, you got to keep working, right? But you go back and you're like a D coordinator in Tampa.
Well, I mean, from all reports, he and Bowles and
Arians.
And Arians are very, very close. So
yeah.
But I mean, if you would do it for anyone, you would do it for Arians.
But you got to keep working. That's the hard part. He's a young man still, sort of. But man, that drop. It's always like whenever I see Bill Callahan and he's always the offensive line coach now. And you're like, man, that guy was like the Nebraska head coach, the Oakland, like, wow. But you got to keep working. So, not, he's in the NFL. So they're 6.5. They had 5 last year. I think Arians is a motivator. I'm not saying playoffs, but I do think they're going to get to 7 wins. I think they're going to be on the over. They still have the vestiges of a good defense. If Jameis is going to get anything out of himself, it's going to be with Arians. So I'm going to go 7 this year.
I'm going to go 6 and 10, so I'm going to go under.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm a big Arians fan. But I just don't see it.
Next up, a team you're a very big fan of, the Washington Redskins. 6 wins on the over-under, 7 last year. I got them at 5 and 11. I said I could see 6, but I feel the under. I think this is the year, man. Case Keenum is your starter. Haskins will be coming in at some point. I don't think there's ever been a greater actor in this role of the Case Keenum winning the starting spot in camp over the rising rookie. Getting about 4 or 5 games, and then the same thing happens, and then he'll be out and he'll be at a new team next year. The guy keeps bouncing back and getting paychecks, though. I mean, he got some money, so good for him. But I think because of all that said, what did we say? The Giants were going 6, right?
6, yeah.
Yeah, so if they're going 6, the Redskins are going 5 and 11. Sorry. What do you think?
I agree with that. That's where I had them as well. I just think they made some strange decisions in the offseason, not taking the quarterback. I think that probably was a defensible decision, but I mean, signing Landon Collins and then releasing your 2 linebackers to save money, and they signed Landon Collins to a contract that I love Landon Collins, but that's too much money for him. So I don't know. And they're, obviously Trent Williams wants out of there. So what was once one of their strengths, maybe getting weaker, the offensive line. They always had a very strong offensive line. Just everything you hear out of the Redskins this offseason suggests that they're not headed in the right direction. And I think they're going to slide to 5 wins and probably, unfortunately, cost Gruden his job.
I think so. He's been there a long time, though, I feel like.
He has.
Cincinnati, a team who had Marvin Lewis there forever, now has one of the Sean McVay disciples, right? Mm-hmm. This will be the real test of that because it's really stretching that. They won 6 last year. They're at 6 this year. I have them going under. I could either talk myself into 5 and 11 or 4 and 12. I think AJ Green is starting to go on the downside with injuries. They do have a great running back. A running back who anyone could have had, but had a lot of off-the-field issues. And I think a lot of their regular season competitiveness actually came down to Marvin Lewis. He just wasn't a playoff coach, but sometimes you lose that when you get the new coach because they're trying new things and maybe he doesn't have the same stability of his eye on the regular season wins. I mean, they're not expected to be great, but I have them on the under.
I have them at I'm going to go under as well. I think I could talk myself into 6, but I'm going to go under at 5. I think, AJ Green, it's funny because this is a team I did watch in the preseason. It's normally not a team I would watch, but because they played the Giants, I did. And I think they're going to make a quarterback switch at some point this season.
Who's the backup?
It's, was it Finley? What's his name? The guy from NC State.
Oh, okay. Was that this year's draft?
Yes.
Okay. So the guy's going to want a new quarterback anyway.
I think coach. He is. Ryan Finley. And I have a nephew named Finley, as you know, so I don't know why that didn't stick in my mind more readily. But yeah, so I think they're going to make a quarterback switch, and I think they're going to be probably at 5 and 11.
We talk Giants, Oakland Raiders. This is a fun one because we're all watching Hard Knocks. And I do have to say, much like the Dallas Cowboys coach, Jason Garrett, John Gruden plays a great coach on TV. And look, I think that keeps a lot of people their job when they're great on TV as a coach. And I think it ruins a lot of jobs when they're not. Look back over the tape of all the years. I'm not saying he's a great coach, but he plays a great coach because he understands TV. They were 6. They're 6 over under. They won 4 last year. I actually have them at 6-10. But I when I was looking at the schedule, it felt hard for me to push down to a 5-11. And look, going under is bad news. But it's also possible with the transitionary nature of the season and headed to Vegas, and no one's going to be surprised if they don't do well. So I think there's a lot of sort of invisible shield, force field pushing them down, and they're just not a great team still.
They're not. I mean, he's still in the teardown mode and trying to rebuild in his image. And their team, though, I think they could get hot toward the end of the season and play spoiler and maybe even possibly like still be in playoff contention come mid-November. Just as I think you might start reading stories like, okay, this is finally John Gruden's team and they're starting to finally play Gruden football. But so I could almost get them to 7. I'm going to give them 7. I'm going to go over. I'm going to go 7-9. Yeah.
Look at you. Good job. Making one Gruden brother rise as the other falls. Arizona Cardinals. Ooh. They 5 over under. They won 3 last year. I have them going 3-13 this year, but it is a brutal schedule. I think they are going to be fun to watch because Kyler Murray is going to be like a player that not a lot of people have seen in football. He is unbelievable, playing from a small stature, fast as hell, really good arm. He's going to do some magical things, but their schedule is so brutal, and no one's expecting them to do better than that. I think they're going to go 3-13.
I'm going to go 4-12. The analogy that this reminds me of is like when Paul Westhead took over the Denver Nuggets in the early 90s, and he had Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf as his point guard. Yep. And that team like put up so many points, but unfortunately the opposition put up more points every night. And I think that's what they're going to do. I'm interested to see. I mean, think about Cliff Kingsbury. He gets fired, then gets hired as the offensive coordinator at USC, and now he's the head coach. One of 32 jobs in the entire world. Completely coveted, even though he was a mediocre at best college coach. But people believe in his system, and it'll be interesting to see. Like, does his system work in the NFL? And there have been a number of college systems over the years that haven't. Most recently Chip Kelly's. That didn't really work very well in the NFL.
Well, it did. It did, though. Initially, two 10-win seasons, right?
Yeah, but then people caught up to them.
Yeah, sure. And he's fallen off in college, too. That's messed up.
Yes. And then Steve Spurrier back at the early part of the 2000s when he went to the Redskins, thinking like, oh, okay, he's going to run his offense, but didn't do so well. So, I don't know. Is Kingsbury going to fall into that same category? It is funny that, the Cardinals play at the Giants this season. And those are actually pretty coveted tickets because people want to see, the quarterback and they want to see the head coach. So they'll be an interesting 4-12.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lastly, the Miami Dolphins. It's funny these two teams are at the bottom in the fact that the quarterbacks.
And they're both playing the Giants at home this season. So. Oh my
God! You know what's kind of cool? There's 2 teams, at least I saw so far, who are playing the Jets and Giants in consecutive weeks. Isn't that crazy? So the first one is Buffalo. They're playing is it the Giants the first week or the Jets the first week?
They play the Jets in week 2. They play the Giants in week 2.
Giants week, so it's Jets week 1, Giants week 2, and then they're from New York, so it's like, of course they're going to go home, but that's so weird. And then I think the Dolphins, it's one other team does the same thing because of the mix of the divisions, and it falls that way. And you're like, maybe the Dolphins do stay up here because it was later in the season, or maybe they're like, let's just get back to Florida. But I'm always intrigued with that midweek, what you do with the week. Do you make it like a retreat? I always loved when watching one of those Hard Knocks type shows with Arians and when he was with the Cardinals, and they would go to the Greenbrier?
Oh, yeah, in West Virginia.
Yeah, like they just go down there and spend a week and like practice. It's kind of cool. So Miami is 4.5. They won 7 last year, and I have them as well at 3-13 on the under, and they're expecting that.
Yeah, I got them at 3-13 at the under. That's a team that I think wants 3-13. And they made out well in the trade they just executed. So they're getting draft picks. They made when you think about it, they got a better haul than the Bears got last year for Khalil. I mean, sorry, than
Cowboys.
Than the I think the Raiders got for Khalil Mack.
Oh,
right?
Raiders got for Khalil. Yeah.
So hats off to them for pulling that off. 3-13. I think that's where they're headed.
We've done pretty well.
They'll be coming to MetLife Stadium in December. And those are my tickets.
Tickets are available. Brought to you by Tickets.
Yes, they are. If you want them, please grab them.
So 120, not too bad. Last thing, who's your Super Bowl?
I think I'm going to go with the
Kansas
Chiefs.
City.
Kansas City, yeah. And my NFC team, I've gone back and forth on a couple of them. I'm going to go Kansas City and New Orleans. I'm going to say the Super Bowl we should have had last year.
Kansas City and New Orleans. Yeah, that could be fun. You know, it could be fun too. Kansas City, Minnesota. I just don't trust.
That is, yeah.
I just don't trust Cousins to get you there. That's all. So.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It starts Thursday.
Cool. Well, we did it. We were getting a little more efficient each year. So let's just see if we're correct. Efficient, but not effective.
By the way, I'm terrible at this. I might be the worst person on the planet when it comes to this. So for whatever reason, I'm called back every season. I don't know why. Probably to make you look better. But I don't admit to any proficiency whatsoever in this.
Well, thanks for waiting to tell us at the end. So,
sorry about that.
Thanks for coming on live from New York. It's Tim Castano.
Thanks very much, Matt.